Hey everyone, welcome to Hustle On. My name is Joe Galatly. Today, I am joined by a very successful and brilliant entrepreneur here in Spokane, Dr. Lisa Shaffer. Lisa is fresh off of her second exit. She built and sold Paw Print Genetics. That deal closed in December 2021. Previously, she built and sold Signature Genomics. We're going to get into the different pathways she took in building those two companies, including capitalization, team building, and more. So great conversation ahead. I really appreciate Lisa taking time to join us for the pod, and I hope you enjoy this as well.
Yeah, I'm on my way. I'm needing some big change. Like, how are things still the same? They finding me entertaining. Could never be imitated. Can't wait to say that I made it.
Welcome to Hustle On, the podcast about startups in Spokane and across the inland Northwest.
Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Fresh off of your second exit. I know there's a lot we could unpack here. I would love to just start us out with looking back at what brought you to Spokane. So if I understand, you were a professor at Baylor. You came to Spokane maybe as an effort among some of the entities here. Can you walk us through what brought you here and what led to your first company creation?
Sure. So I was actually recruited by WSU Spokane when Harry Milkey was the chancellor there. And he worked with Sacred Heart Medical Center because they needed a cytogeneticist. So I'm a board certified cytogeneticist, which basically means I look at structures that carry all of our genes called chromosomes. And so the hospital was looking for a cytogeneticist, and WSU Spokane was looking to start filling the laboratories that they were building in their health sciences building. And I was a perfect fit. And at the time when I was at Baylor College of Medicine, we were working on the genetic basis of intellectual disability. So kids with either, physical disabilities or intellectual disabilities that might have gains or losses of genetic material or chromosomes. And we had developed a way to look at the chromosomes by scanning the genome. And I wanted to do that commercially because I felt it was better than looking through a microscope. And at the time, Baylor College of Medicine told me, no, that you can't do that. And I thought that the only way to do that would be to start a company. So I moved to Spokane in 2002. And then in 2003, I started looking for funding for Signature Genomics. And we actually found our funding again through Sacred Heart Medical Center and PAML. They provided the seed money. Tom Tiffany was on our board. It was an incredible time. Skip Davis really put it all together. He was an incredible person. So we started Signature Genomics in 2003. And by 2004, we launched our first product, and we launched it in March of 2004. And by September of 2004, we broke even, and we were profitable every day after that. So it was a real fairy tale. But really, I came to Spokane to work at WSU Spokane and work at the hospital and then start Signature Genomics.
That's exciting to see something take root so quickly. With the support from the hospital, this is prior, I think, to Providence launching their venture fund. And I think they've gotten pretty good at some kind of tech transfer opportunities. At that time when they supported this, did they take a very active role? Was it mostly the board seats that they took along with that funding? Or did you kind of have an active role from the system, the health system at large?
So PAML was very active. So PAML did our books for a few years. So they were very helpful. So I didn't have to hire a bookkeeper. I didn't have to hire a CFO. And at the very beginning, actually, all of our employees were PAML employees. So PAML was extremely supportive. Tom Tiffany, extremely supportive. And Skip Davis had appointed someone to be on the board because he was super busy. And so between the hospital and PAML, they owned 50% of the company. So it was amazing. It was great. It was really a perfect way to have a startup in Spokane because we immediately were well connected in the community.
Have you seen PAML launch any other companies? Have you seen this model used again since the launch of Signature?
To my knowledge, I think Signature Genomics might have been their last venture, but I'm not quite sure about that. They were purchased by LabCorp a few years ago.
Well, it's exciting to see, like you said, something that was somewhat maybe experimental, it sounds like, and it's really now something that's been replicated a lot. But I think a few years back, as this was formed, there probably wasn't a clear playbook for this, and yet you saw it just really come together, and you were able to lead that company to some great success. If you take that and fast forward now to was it 2010 that you launched Paw Print Genetics?
So Signature Genomics was acquired in 2010. And at the time when they were acquired, there was 120 employees. So it had grown to a large company, large in my standards. And then in 2012, I launched Paw Print Genetics. For Paw Print Genetics, I wanted to continue to do something in genetics, but not in the human health space. And so we looked to do canine genetic testing to test for inherited diseases and traits in dogs. And so that's what we started with.
As Paw Print grew, was the primary funding coming in from individual pet owners, or was there some other type of revenue stream that really grew for you?
So our main market was breeders. So people that were breeding purebred dogs or designer breeds, the different kinds of doodles, used us a lot. So with Signature Genomics, after our seed funding round, then we went out and got venture capital funding. And so it was, completely venture backed. Whereas with Paw Print Genetics, I decided to do it on my own. So I funded Paw Print Genetics.
How's that working out for you?
I'm done now. So I had my exit. So it was great, but it was very stressful. There's pluses and minuses to being venture backed. For one thing, you have a board of people that you can rely on. I had no board. It was just me. You had people that you could talk to. I had no one to talk to. It was just me. I mean, I had a great staff, and I had a very senior staff. Many of those people came from Signature Genomics. But at the end of the day, I was responsible for everybody's salaries. I was responsible for making sure that the business was bringing in enough business to make payroll every month. So it was pretty stressful, but I wouldn't change it. It was kind of nice at the exit that, I owned 100%.
Is it extremely situational, or do you have kind of broadly guidance that you would give an entrepreneur who maybe could go either route, could try to bootstrap this, whether or not they have much funding, I'm sure would make a difference. Some capital ready would make a difference as well. But as you just contrasted having VCs, not having VCs, do you you have kind of a broad preference out of your experience, or is it too situational to really answer that?
I think there's pluses and minuses. I think that VCs can bring a lot to the table. Obviously, in addition to capital, they bring their experience, they bring their connections, they bring a support system that I didn't have. Like during this last exit, during the transaction, I didn't really have anyone I could, talk to about it other than, I have an attorney, but it's not the same as having people who also have a stake in the game. So that's where, it really comes in handy. On the other hand, running Paw Print for almost 10 years, I ran it the way I wanted to run it. No one told me what to do. And we were very successful, very disruptive in a mature field. It was quite exciting. So it's really nice to be able to make your own decisions. So I think it just depends on, how you want to run your business. And given that I had so much experience with Signature Genomics, I really felt like I could, make the decisions and make the right decisions.
Well, looking at this very practically then, in your success with Signature Genomics and raising funds, how did you connect with those VCs? What was it, relationships? How did those doors open? I think that's something that still, to this day is something that many are kind of mapping and figuring out.
Signature Genomics was a complete fairy tale, honestly. Like I said, we were profitable within our first, 6 months of launching our first product. And we were able to launch the product based on the seed money that we received. We actually had VCs come and knock on our door. So that's really unusual. Prior to getting the hospital funding, we did meet with one venture capital group that they weren't interested. I don't think they really understood what we were trying to do. And that's another important thing is your VC partners really have to understand, what it is that you do and your goals. So again, we didn't have to go knock on very many doors. They came to us, which was the same for our exit. And in the fall of 2009, we actually had 4 different companies trying to purchase us, and we had not even been looking. So again, Signature Genomics was a complete fairy tale.
Well, it sounds like the magic in that fairy tale is because you had product market fit right out the door. You knew you were building something. Your innovation that you're bringing to market was extremely valuable, obviously, and received immediately. Aside from funding, as you think back and contrast these two company building exercises that you've successfully done, you mentioned some of the staff came from the previous company, came to the new company. Did you approach staffing up that agency any differently based on what you had learned at Signature coming into Paw Print? Did you hire executives sooner? Any changes in how you approached that?
So with the Signature Genomics, it wasn't until the VCs came on board that, we switched from having Pamela be our HR and doing our books to hiring a CFO and hiring our own HR. And because the VCs, I remember distinctly them saying, you need to look like a company. And we, even though we were profitable, we looked like, we were, doing our own checks, right? In a checkbook kind of thing. So we wanted to look like a company. So I did start Paw Print differently. I hired from the onset how I wanted our company to look. So we had a director of operations, we had a director of research, and most of those people came from Signature. So I definitely hired to look more like a mature company than a startup.
Beyond the hiring, any reflections on leadership style and just as an idea as perhaps the sense of urgency for building out and scaling the cadence or the timetable that you had as founding that company? Did that look any different the second time around as you built the team on and started setting your culture in place?
No, I think it was very similar. I have the opposite philosophy of most people who think they need to be the smartest person in the room. I actually prefer to surround myself with super smart people that, question what I'm telling them and, speak up. And I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I really want to learn from the people around me. And so I've always tried to hire, really smart people, and I've been very successful doing that.
That's a fantastic takeaway. Also, you said with Paw Print, you brought people on from Signature Genomics. In the days with Signature Genomics, were you recruiting out of area? Were you able to find quite a bit of the workforce here? How did hiring in Spokane look for you?
So Spokane's a great place to have a company because there's 4 universities here. So for the lab staff, we always hired directly out of the universities and would train them because most people wouldn't come out of a university knowing the molecular genetic techniques that we needed them to know. So we always trained. We had a training program in both companies. But to hire director level at Signature Genomics, they needed to be board certified by the American Board of Medical Genetics, as am I. And we had to hire outside of Spokane for that. But that wasn't a problem. I don't remember how many directors we had at the end, but we may have had as many as 10. So we were able to hire people. And Signature really was something just completely special because we changed the way that medical genetics was being done. We changed from looking through a microscope at chromosomes to doing DNA-based testing, which was then analyzed by a computer. And so people wanted to join us. We were the first to do it, and we had a terrible business model in that we went around and taught other labs how to do it. But then in the end, it turned out to be a good business model because we would sell them the kits and we would license to them the software. So our vision kind of morphed over time, but it was the right thing to do.
That's a fantastic point again, and something that's been brought up recently. I've heard this as an aspect of how you manage staffing in today's world, where it's really recruitment can be really challenging right now. In the past 12 months, only more so. And having a mission, a vision, something that's new and exciting, like what you're describing, is one of those core competitive angles that you can have for recruiting, right? To bring people on board when right now there's just so much opportunity for employees.
Right. And Paw Print Genetics was something that, people want to work there because we work with dogs and we launched products for cats and birds as well. And, it wouldn't be uncommon for someone to show up with a box of puppies and want us to test the whole litter. So once in a while, I even got to play with puppies. So Paw Print Genetics is also a pretty special place to work.
That's a nice competitive angle too. Get to come play with puppies. So talking about recruiting to Spokane, any other thoughts on the opportunities creating your businesses in Spokane? Any opportunities they benefited from? And I guess as a contrast to that, any disadvantages that maybe we need to or are working through as a community to foster these kind of high growth companies?
For both Signature Genomics and Paw Print Genetics, we basically had to create our own space. So there's no laboratory space that somebody can occupy. There's very little. I shouldn't say none, but there's very little. So I think that's one area. And, so we had to, create our own spaces, which is expensive. But other than that, Spokane's a great place. We have, again, the 4 universities, and hiring directly from the universities was a huge advantage. I was always part of Greater Spokane Incorporated, super supportive. You could reach out to them. You actually get a response. I think Spokane was the right place for me and the right place for both of my companies. We both Signature and Paw Print are worldwide. They received samples from all over the world. And, now with FedEx, you can have a company anywhere. So why not have a company in a supportive community environment? And that's really what Spokane is. It's very supportive.
Well, you have been a trailblazer for us in Spokane, and I think you're becoming this living legend for the entrepreneurs in town to look up to, Lisa. One closing question, another Spokane-centric question. Any restaurant or winery that you would recommend to everyone listening that's open these days?
Wiley's downtown. Everyone should try Wiley's. Yeah, it's a great little atmosphere, and the food is fantastic. So Wiley's for sure.
Thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time, Lisa. Keep up the great work, and we can't wait to see what's next for you.